Wow. Madness. Moving along. In 1996, Sylvère invited me to be part of an event on Artaud. And Baudrillard was one of the people who was participating in this event. And I was one of these, I think there were other people like me, I'm not sure, but I just had it with all of these French philosophers, or so I believed. So before the event, Sylvère told me we were going to have dinner, and I was going to have dinner with Baudrillard. And I thought, oh man. So I'm sitting there across from Baudrillard, and I'm watching him cut his food. And he's cutting his meat in these tiny little pieces. And he's cutting the meat in these tiny little pieces and slowly eating. And I looked at him, and as I watched him, I developed this great tenderness for him. And finally I said to him, you know, for a few years now, I always thought I hated you. And he looked up at me and he said, really? I said, yeah, but now I realize that I hate the people who are into you. And he said, yeah, I understand. Me too. I hate them too. Which brings me to Jim Fletcher, who is one of my favorite artists and human beings, and manages to be both. And he's going to read his translation of 2 letters written by Artaud to the head of Rodez Asylum in 1944. Jim Fletcher.
Thank you, Betty. So, hello, thank you. I did these translations at the request of Sylvère, and I'm reading them at the request of Sylvère. And I want to thank Sylvère for all the requests he's made over the years. Artaud was like maybe the greatest schizophrenic, one of them of all time. Anyway, the thing is, like, when you say schizoculture, I guess you have to trace it back to Artaud. Because Deleuze and Guattari, they had schizoanalysis, but they were using a lot of things from Artaud. But Artaud always protested that he wasn't schizophrenic, as you'll see in these letters. And the other thing is, these letters are happening started in 1943. There's one from 44 and there's one from 45 during World War II. And it was while he was at Rodez Asylum, I'll call it Rodez. And shortly after that, he got out. I think he got out in 1947 or 46. And he died before 1950. And it was after he got out of Rodez, but before he died, that he wrote some of those great things like To Have Done with the Judgment of God, Vincent van Gogh, The Man Suicided by Society, those great things that are not just about like the theater of cruelty and stuff like that. So anyway, here's in that time when he was at Rodez talking to his doctor, trying to get out. To Dr. Ferrier, Rodez, 12 July, 1943. My dear friend, you've been good to me. By bringing me here, you've softened a little the torture of my confinement and reduced as best you could this appalling sensation of hunger that has not left me since 1940. That's why, with only your own pure interest in mind, I want to alert you to something that I know. Because the elan of heart that you've always shown for me in the midst of my distress, I will never be able to forget. Rest assured, in any case, that as far as I'm concerned, I've never felt you and I were at odds at any time. I've simply come to realize that certain evil influences coming from the outside must have been pitted against me. And it must have been difficult for you at times to defend me. Because while I have many and important friends in the world, you also know that in the police and the French administration, I have enemies that are very rancorous, very cunning, very vicious, and I don't think you will consider it to be in me a syndrome of manic psychosis and delirium of persecution, because you've had at various times unmistakable proofs of it. And you can't forget, in any case, that it was after having established as a psychiatric doctor the injustice of my internment, and after having caught wind of unsavory maneuvers on the part of the police in my case, that you reclaimed me and brought me here. And because you've always felt that medicine was not to be at the command of the police. You should not have subjected me to electric shocks, my dear friend, because in truth, I am a sedate man with no delirium, and I don't know what evil wind has taken hold of you that you would suddenly consider what I said to be a delirium of persecution, whereas I was simply setting out for you, technically, in a letter, the occult ways by which evil imposes its particular biology on the human organism. But above all, because in doing so, you have demagnetized me. And therefore put me in a state of lower resistance to the onslaughts of the pernicious forces that lie in wait for all of us and cause all of our disorders, mental as well as physical, by first attacking our brains and our nervous and sympathetic nervous systems. And my dear friend, occultly, all beings of the same race cohere. All those who love each other are occultly tied. To do me harm is to do you harm, and vice versa. And I've had the impression that since the accident that I had following the electroshock, from which I don't know when I'll recover, you haven't been doing well yourself, morally and emotionally. And that pains me, because it was a mistake that evil caused you to make, but which wasn't absolutely according to your heart. But here's the thing I wanted to alert you to, because you have known it and you've forgotten it. That is, that my internment was the result of a religious sacrifice and a pact that was made amongst honest people following a battle that took place in Paris in 1934, where the forces of good and evil went at each other with the most implacable rigor. If this seems too supernatural to you or too strange, please reread, if you would, Is God French by F. Seaborg, or My Beautiful Marseille by Carlo Rim, which tell of the unique, miraculous events in the life of a personage known by the name of Saint Artaud. Or read In the Secret of the Great Pyramid by Georges Barbin at Édition Rapp in 1935, the excerpts from the prophecy of Saint Patrick, which foretell the adventures of a man who, after a journey to Ireland, where he had gone to return St. Patrick's cane, was locked up and poisoned. This is in the book. In a lunatic's asylum, and Antonin Artaud was poisoned for a long time in a cell at the Pinel wing of the hospital at Le Havre, at the Quatremaux Asylum, and at St. Anne's Asylum in Paris. And you will realize that evil, that is to say the forces of the Antichrist, do not want the idea of the wondrous or of miracle, nor indeed any sense of the occult, to appear to the slightest degree in my case, so as to corroborate thus the police fables of mental derangement, because any remembrance of the legendary circumstances which concern the most sacred, the most profound religious myth under which my internment was decided would reduce to nothing the Jewish police fable of mythomania and delirium of persecution. This said, my very dear friend, you must realize that my internment cannot go on forever, and you must finally want power to remain with justice and with truth. That is to say, with light against the darkness, because that's what it's all about right now. And my present case and my situation of a man unjustly condemned and banished to an insane asylum is nothing but an aspect of the eternal struggle which, since the beginnings of the world, sets the good principle, Hormuz, Ahura Mazda, against the principle of darkness, Ahriman. And for a long time,
His phone's ringing.
And for a long time, you've taken part in this struggle, and you delivered blows in Paris in 1934 for the eternalizing, beneficent principle of God against the morbidifying principle of Satan, because 1934 was, in the history of the world, the date of the fateful crossroads where beings had to choose whether to live or to die. That is, between God and death. And you, Dr. Ferrier, here present, chose God, the eternal life. And for this, and for the love of God, you paid with your person, with your flesh, and with your body. And if you have currently forgotten this because evil has hatefully smothered your memory, I, for my part, have never forgotten it. And I only want to give you back what is yours. The destiny of things was set in 1934 by the free choice of beings in a kind of poignant council where evil in its principle was forever crushed and vanquished. But after that, we had to live according to the particular forms of this battle in the temporal presence of things. And this battle was won by good only at the price of the sacrifice of a being who consented to be taken alive by evil and to fall, sound of body and spirit, into the hands of his enemies. By this sacrifice, evil agreed not to take the entire earth, but merely to wreak havoc on a single victim. And this victim, among other macerations, made a vow of eternal chastity because the kingdom of God belongs only to the chaste. Antonin Artaud suffered 2 years of bewitchings and relentless poisoning until finally his soul gave up and he died. This soul left the earth, and it was required that another soul come to take its place in a body the same as his. I am his successor, and it doesn't matter what my name is. The main thing is that if my own soul has only been on this earth for 3 years, I have in my body the absolute and exact physiological memory, integrally and inalienably exact, of 6 years of tortures, of incomprehensions, of broken vows, of bewitchings, and of internment. And I feel the fateful hour coming very near where the defeat of evil, written for all eternity in heaven, will be displayed shamelessly in the gasping flesh of things, because men are going to remember where and how they were tricked and led astray by the cunning one, to the point of believing that love, which was created, or rather manifested, in order to eternalize beings, and which comes from the immaculate encounter between hearts, needed, in addition, the abject encounter between the sexes, as if the supernatural merging of souls demanded for its perfect fulfillment on earth the excremental consecration of orgasm invented by Satan. It seems impossible to me after this, and I'm looking again at the events I'm telling you about where you staked your entire destiny, that an honest heart like yours could bear any longer the injustice of my internment. Euphrasie Artaud, with whom you've discussed some of the conditions of my stay at Rodez, was Antonin Artaud's mother. But like you, she has forgotten the undeniable material and objective reality of the extraordinary events of which I'm speaking to you, and through which she lived like you, and she can't believe that I am not her son. However, Dr. Ferrier, I have another family which consists of a father named Joseph, a mother named Mary, and whose last name is Nalpas. And I have a sister as well, whose name is Germaine Nalpas. I have no idea where they are, and I'm asking at once that you help me find them because they're looking for me as well. All I know is that at a given moment between December 1941 and February 1943, my little sister Germaine lived in Orléans because I had in my hands a newspaper from Orléans describing a remarkable event that was a glorious feat whose heroine was my little sister Germaine Nalpas, aged 20 years. It is important now to show this letter to Madame Ferrier, because Madame Ferrier is in reality an angel, and because there was in history a saint from Lesbos with whom she shares many features, and who had a perfect intimacy with the Nalpas family from Smyrna and from Asia Minor, from Anatolia and from Jerusalem in Judea. I should add that Euphrasie Artaud is one of the ladies Nalpas, and that she was born in Smyrna in 1870. Antonine Nalpas. P.S. This means, Dr. Ferrier, that in reality, since 1934, something has been broken in the order of succession of time, and that 1943, the 1943 in which we are actually living, is not situated in time 9 years after 1934, in which we stake our entire destiny, but is a year which in space strangely neighbors on that other year, and is, one might say, parallel with it, because the essential resolutions that were taken in 1934 were carried out and received their material consecration in this year, 1943. Rodez, 15 October, 1945, to Dr. Ferrier. I have understood dear Monsieur Ferrier, why you're displeased with me, but before anything irreparable is done, I wanted to address myself one last time to your heart so as to recover in you the friend who helped me and brought me here, and not the doctor of an administration that caused my torture for 7 years, whereas the friend rose up a year ago against the injustice of this torture and wanted to stop it. I believe, Monsieur Ferrier, that in you there is a friend who loves me and understands me, and that is you yourself. And there is a man who only thinks of treating me in order to destroy me. And he wants to destroy me because who knows what mysterious envy inspires me. This man is not you, but he reappears every time the friend thinks he has something to reproach me with. You're reproaching me now with hiding from you, and that's what you've always reproached me with ever since I've been here. But I see these more as jealous scenes from a friend rather than the critical reproaches of a doctor. Something of my inner world escapes you, and you resent my opening it to others besides you. But that's the opposite of what I intended. I always wanted to bring you into my own poetic sphere, but I could tell you didn't want to believe it, and that's what closed my heart. The mystical states of a poet are not delirium, Dr. Ferrier. They are the foundation of his poetry. To treat me as delirious is to deny the poetic value of the suffering which, since the age of 15, has boiled inside me before the marvels of the world of the spirit, which the being of the real world can never realize. And it is from this admirable suffering of being that I drew my poems and my songs. How is it that what you like in my work you don't like in my person? It is from my deepest self that I pulled my poems and my writings, and you like them. Every poet is a seer. It is from his own illuminism that Rimbaud drew his illuminations, and Season in Hell. And William Blake saw in the mystical world of the spirit the object of all the visions and marvels he transcribed in the marriage of heaven and hell. If I did not believe in my heart's mystical images, I could never have given them life. I believe in heaven, Dr. Ferrier, if I don't believe in hell, and I consider it a revolting impiety to treat as delirium the images that I have forged from heaven. I have never stopped perceiving around me periodically since the age of 15, Jesus Christ and the Holy Virgin, and I never hid that from anybody. And all of Paris was aware of the mystical visions that I had at the time when I was the poet Antonine Artaud, and when I was free. You described them yourself in Paris in 1935, and I don't understand how something which at the time astounded Dr. Gaston Ferrier, hospital intern, and made him love the poet and the mystic that I was, should today be treated as delirium by Dr. Gaston Ferrier, physician, director of the Rodez Asylum. In Paris, you promised to defend me at every turn, and you said my mystical states were of the truth and not a pathological delirium, and that we would have to have fallen into an age of crime, ignorance, and madness to come to treat them as sickness. I'm begging you to recall your true soul and to understand that another series of electroshock would destroy me. And I don't believe that in all good conscience you would want that. Thank you.
Fletcher. Gary, Indiana. Gary, Indiana. Gary, Indiana. Gary, Indiana.
That's been games, don't worry about.
Oh. Will you be being joined by Mr. Steding?
By
The amazing Walter Steding, who was part of the 1978 NOVA Convention. Welcome. Well, of course, you must know that Gary is an amazing writer. Not only is he an amazing novelist, he's also an amazing theater writer and actor, and we're now going to experience him as a singer.
Okay.
Kind of amazing, but I would like some of you people to understand that deep down in reality, there is nothing romantic about mental illness. And there's nothing romantic about mental health either. Okay, I was going to tell you, Lodovico, the story in private. And Walter, where are you? You just had it for a minute. That's like a kind of really kind of dick kind of move, like Patty Smith move, like make sure it's on camera. Got it. Okay. We're gonna get tonight. But this, okay, the story, I might as well fill it in here. The story I'm going to tell you was about Constantine the IX, who was the Byzantine emperor who succeeded Michael V. Now, the Empress Sylvère. Okay, I'll tell you this story later. I think there's been too much expectation built up around this song, so let's do the song first. I might really fuck this up, but at least it'll be the first thing. And unfortunately, even though I have this memorized, I have to read the lyrics from the sheet because I get carried away and I'll forget some, like the whole second part of the I haven't actually sung this. It's by Sigmar Smith. I'm gonna drive down to your house in a shiny black Cadillac car. Take you to the river and watch you drown. I'm gonna carve your name in a nickel. I'm gonna stab like mad at the river until my knife sticks into the water straight up and down. I'm gonna stand where the river is wide and skip that nickel to the other side. Nothing better try to stop me coming through the ride. There's a hole in the deepest mine where the dead men go to die. There isn't gonna be much left of me for them to find. I'm sorry, that last bit had a kind of faggy twang that I hadn't accustomed. I'm gonna buy me some dynamite and sing to it late at night. Strap it to my hips with an old bullwhip I found. I'm gonna climb through the sycamore wood and fall from the tallest tree. If no one's there when I explode in midair, then I won't make a sound. Like a curtain when it splits, like dynamite once it's lit. Once you stop caring, it's very hard to quit. I'm gonna drive down to your house in a shiny black Cadillac car. Take you to the river and watch you drown. I'm gonna drive down to your house in a shiny black Cadillac car. Take you to the river and watch you drown. I'm gonna drive down to your house in a shiny black Cadillac car. I want to try something in the way of a kind of a, like, it's actually kind of an experiential or existential experience for me. Because, you know, like most of my life, you know, I've been going to poetry readings. Like, I'm not compulsively read them very often, but I have observed people who write poetry reading their poetry, and I've always sort of envied a certain kind of elan, or confidence that, you know, what they were reading was like really important. I've never actually had that attitude toward anything that I've written, so I thought, surely, you know, I mean, if I just would take material that's not mine and try to go to a reading and, you know, read it as I would if I were like a serious poet, maybe that would work. So this is called found poetry of the internet. Can I have some water? Because I'm really drying out. That's not water. All right, now you know what? I have to finish telling this story. Constantine IX, after the death of Michael, married the Empress Steding. The Byzantine Empire went by matrilineal succession, even though the only time that women were in power was when there was not an emperor, and there was not a god. they would run it until they got married again. That's kind of extraneous, but just to, you know, it's like Constantine IX, the Byzantine emperor, he had a very particular kind of humor. He wasn't amused by any ordinary, anyone with a speech impediment, or anyone like, you know, stuttered, or, you know, lisp. He thought they were riotously funny, right? So there was one particular person that he ran across who just amused him endlessly because he would stutter often. And he lavished privileges on this guy, who's referred to, by the way, in the writings of the Byzantine historian as the comedian. Now, the comedian, over time, had unlimited access to the emperor. The emperor was so fond of him, and so fond, I think, of being just amused, that you know, the comedian could burst into meetings of state of like the highest order. You know, without any permission from him, he could burst in on the, you know, the emperor anytime. I mean, it's a very odd thing, you know, that this comedian had like total access, you know, because he was the emperor's fool. But unlike the fools in Shakespeare, he was so tolerated that eventually the emperor even slept with him. And when the emperor woke up in the morning, the first thing he wanted to hear was this ridiculous speech of his fool, the comedian. Okay, now, like, listen, this doesn't have a big payoff, okay? At a certain point, the comedian's endless indulgence by the emperor led him into kind of a, like, fully the grandeur. He believed suddenly that he was just as good as the emperor. Like, why shouldn't he be the emperor? Now, at this time, the emperor was married to the Empress Zoe, who had been at various times nearly the Augusta. And at this point, Zoe's sister, Theodora, who had been brought out of a nunnery to be her co-partner in power over Byzantium after the death of Zoe's second emperor. He became, the comedian became the lover, the secret lover of the emperor's mistress. And he began to believe that, okay, what happened next? The comedian believed that he could assassinate the emperor and become the next emperor. And about an hour before he was going to enter the sleeping chamber of the emperor, to which he had like complete and total access. I mean, nobody stopped him, no security, nothing. Hey, maybe. Then when he wants to talk. The comedian, like, overcome with the magnitude of like his presumption, but also like the gravity of what he was about to do, said, okay, you know, I'm not going to kill the emperor. This is like a bad idea. But he told so many people about it. That once he didn't follow through, they had to fuck him up to get out of the whole situation without getting killed himself. So, okay, but now listen to me very closely. This is the beauty part of the story. The Emperor Constantine Constantino Boris, was a genuinely human being. And he understood how natural it was for somebody that had to play the fool around him all those years to want to stab him in his sleep and take over his job. So he said, you know what? I know that conspiracies against the emperor are usually very bad things. But in this case, I think this Canadian will have learned his lesson. If I send him into exile for about 10 days, really close by. Because the emperor had learned something that most of the rulers of the world never do. Is you need a fool around to keep it real. There's more to that too. You know, like, don't forget, you know, Constantine, all these people were in the habit of blinding their enemies. Like, if somebody was arrested for being not good somehow, you know, you opposed me, I'll blind you. They went right to the eye and the dungeon. They would fuck around. They'd blind them on the floor of the church, and stab their eye, and then they'd continue to go. All right. 20 most overrated actresses. Rant Lifestyle by Patten. Drew Barrymore. I used to like. Drew. And then she went and tied herself to the sewage train that is Adam Sandler. She is like Canadian. The thing, the joke, is funny. Even if no one else is laughing, and no one is laughing anymore. True. The jig is up. Ellen Page, yeah, but she's cute. Yeah. So are kittens. What's your point, Ellen? Is the Kipster generation's it girl with a dry humor that isn't funny and the angsty energy that makes you believe she is sincere. Don't even get me started on Juno. Hillary Swank, being honest, I just don't like Swank as an actress. Or any movie she's in, she like someone just stole the jam out of her donut. Melissa McCarthy, maybe not overrated, but there has been McCarthy saturations happening. So much so that I'm choking on it. Paltrow, insufferable, is the word you're looking for to describe Paltrow. There's a very hollow, doe-eyed pretentiousness about her acting that makes all her films mediocre and average. She has one setting, and it's dull. Jennifer Lawrence. She is mechanically one-dimensional, emotionally artificial, and is only really good at being childishly potent. What you call naturalistic, I call empty. Blank and vapid. 20 things that guys hide from their girls. I'm not the secret. If anything, I'm prone to oversharing. But in the arena of love, there are still a few things that I like most guys. Would prefer to keep under wraps. But it's not really that we're hiding anything big about ourselves. We're just admitting little details that make us struggle or hurt your feelings. Does that make us liars? plenty of secrets of your own. And that's probably okay. So long as it's nothing major. I'm 53 years old. My husband left me after 24 years, and it took me a long time to get over it. My self-esteem was at rock bottom. I now want to meet someone to have a relationship with. Attracting someone is not the problem. It's the going to bed with them. My body is no longer perfect. I have a few wobbly bits. And I feel so self-conscious. It's holding me back. I'm not overweight at all. I just don't know how to overcome this barrier. I feel that men will think I'm disgusting. He of many selfies. James Franco appeared on David Letterman, and not surprisingly was asked the reason for the flood of photos of his face on Instagram. To me, it's just a thing. It's something I don't put a ton of thought into, but it gets a lot of attention. And I have a lot of followers on Instagram. Franco explained. Letterman then pulled up Franco's recent near photo that he posted to Instagram, in which he's holding his genital and asked the actor, James, why? Honest to God, why? How do you deal with 60 tons of putrefying whale flesh left rotting and stinking on the normally picturesque seafront where you live? The answer, if you inhabit the small Canadian town of Trout River in Newfoundland, is very carefully. Experts have warned that the flammable gases building up inside the 81-foot blue whale would suddenly explode, sending tons of smelly blubber and entrails in the direction of the town's 600 nervous inhabitants. As the whale decomposes, it releases gases such as methane and ammonia that build up inside the body's cavities. There's a real risk of explosion. Partly as the result of the buildup, and also because these gases are flammable, said Paul Jackson, a cetacean biologist at the Institute of Zoology in London. When we dealt with the decomposing carcasses of large whales stranded in Britain, we first tried to decompress the animal by sliding a knife into it. It's amazing the pressures that can build up inside it. And it's a great relief once the stage is complete, Dr. Judson said. In the past month alone, the carcasses of 3 blue whales, which are the largest animals in the world, have washed up on the western shores of Newfoundland, and 2 local towns now face the grisly task of safe disposal. The preferred option in dealing with large whale carcasses that have washed ashore in Britain is to bury them on the same beach where they landed. Or, if this is not possible, to cart them away to a nearby landfill. Dr. Jackson said, local landfill managers love them. Because they quickly decompose and help in the decomposition of all the other stuff in the landfill, he said. Killing out to sea is another possibility, but this runs the risk of the carcass becoming a shipping hazard. Or be blown back on land again. The nuclear option is to blow the carcass up with dynamite. Which was famously done with the large whale stranded off Oregon in 1970 with mixed results. Tons of blubber scattered over a wide area with one large fragment flattening a nearby car. Last summer, in the finale of Game of Thrones' third season, Mother of Dragons, Targaryen, stood outside the walls of Yunkai, waiting for the slaves. She just breathed, hoping to convince them to join her way as free men. In the earth, the white blonde queen traded moons ago to the Dothraki by her brother. Moves into the crowd of outstretched brown arms as they chant Niitha, which we learned means mother in their native tongue. And is carried into the crowd as the camera pulls back to show her floating in the middle of the sea of Mars like a bright planet in a constellation of darkness. I turned to my husband and said, no one at HBO remembers the visual impact of slavery I have. It was at that moment I decided to stop watching it. Adolf Hitler's long-time lover who married the Nazi leader hours before their joint suicide in his Berlin bunker. May have had Jewish ancestry. Groundbreaking DNA testing has found. DNA analysis of hair sample of her from hairbrush, claiming to belong to Braun, suggests that the fascist dictator responsible for the murder of millions of Jews may have unwittingly married a woman of Semitic descent. In one of his final acts, as Third Reich crumbled, an attempt by the producers to procure Hitler's hair Indian embarrassment. When it emerged, the clippings sold by controversial historian David Irving to Channel 4 for 3,000 pounds turned out to be fake. Mr. Evans said, "This is a thought-provoking outcome. I never dreamed that I would find such a potentially extraordinary and profound result. Racism and fascism, ideas that one racial group is superior to another, made a mockery of by studying dead famous DNA." Of course, Jay-Z and Beyonce managed to have the cutest moment of the entire 2014 Met Gala. The XO singer was making her way down the red carpet at the Met Gala Monday night. Naked beside her husband in a noir-inspired debauchee dress, looking all sorts of gorgeous, when one of her rings slipped off her finger. The rapper managed to find the bauble on the ground for his wife without much trouble. Instead of simply giving the ring back, Jay-Z staged a mock proposal and slipped the ring back on her finger. Photographers captured the adorable moment. Last page.
To close the evening, we have the co-director of the original 1975 Schizo-Culture Conference and professor at Columbia University, John Rajchman, will read a fragment of the issue on teenage lobotomy. No, but it's about torture. Torture is part of it. Torture is part of it, and look at how they stay. How they stay. They could have slipped out. They could have slipped out, and we want to hear that fragment on teenage lobotomy. Thank you.
So, it's a fragment that was published in the Schizo-Culture book. It's from an album called Property. sorry, musical style. And was a play that some people see. Okay, so this is the lyric. Lobotomy, lobotomy, lobotomy. DDT did a job on me. Now I'm a real sickie. Guess I'll have